In the first part of this course, we introduced the fundamentals of SAP TM and completed the first hands-on implementation exercise by creating the TM organization structure of Pacific Company. Now it's time to take the next step. In this video, we'll focus on master data. We'll further understand the relationship between the master data shared with SAP ERP and the data required especially for SAP TM. Then we'll move into the hands-on configuration of some of the most important master data objects, including business partners, resources, location, transportation lanes, transportation zone. So let's continue this course journey. Now, let's briefly talk about how ERP master data is handled in SAP TM. In a side-by-side implementation, SAP TM runs in a separate system from SAP ERP or S/4HANA. This means that the relevant master data and transactional data required at transportation processes must be transferred and synchronized between the ERP system in SAP TM. For example, master data such as business partners, location, products, and organizational data needs to be available in TM so that the transportation planning can be performed correctly. The main implication is that data synchronization becomes an important part of the implementation. If data is not transferred correctly or is not kept synchronized, it can directly affect processes in SAP TM. In an embedded TM implementation, however, SAP TM runs within the same S/4HANA system. Because both applications share the same system and data foundation, there's no need to replicate the same master data to a separate TM system. So in simple terms, the main difference is in side-by-side TM data needs to be integrated and synchronized between systems, while in embedded TM, the application work on the same system, reducing the need for replication and synchronization. For this course and the hands-on exercise, we'll focus on the embedded TM in S/4HANA. In traditional SAP ERP, customers and vendors were managed using separate master data objects. In S/4HANA, the approach is different. The central object used to manage these business relationships is the business partner. The main advantage of this approach is that the general master data is maintained only once, reducing data redundancy. Then, different roles can be assigned to the same business partner depending on the business process. A business partner can represent a person, an organization, or a group. For example, an organization could represent a company or one of its departments. This is especially important in SAP Transportation Management, where different parties are involved in the transportation process. For example, a customer may represent the destination of a sales order, while a carrier is typically a vendor that provides transportation service. A single business partner can also perform multiple partners' functions within the same process. For example, the same customer could be the sold-to-party, ship-to-party, payer, and bill-to-party. Finally, SAP can automatically determine the relevant business partners and partner function for different business documents. In this practice, you will create a new business partner for Pacific Company and configure it as a transportation service provider. You will maintain the carrier's general data and assign the required carrier, supplier FI, and supplier purchasing roles. This will help you to understand how a single business partner can perform different functions across SAP TM, purchasing, and financial processes. Go to BP Transaction to create a new business partner. This will be an organizational business partner since the carrier represents a company providing transportation services. In grouping, select internal number assignment as we want SAP to automatically assign the business partner number. Enter the provided business partner name. Maintain a suitable search term to make the business partner easier to find. Next, go to the Address Overview tab, create a new address, and enter the values provided in the exercise. Once all the general data has been maintained, save the business partner. At this point, the business partner has been created. Now we want to assign the role that allow to participate in different parts of the SAP TM and procurement processes. Switch to change mode, select carrier from the role drop-down, save the changes. The carrier role identifies the business partner as the company responsible for physically transporting the freight. In SAP TM, the carrier can be assigned to the transportation documents. Next, assign the supplier FI role. This role allows the carrier to be represented as a supplier from a financial accounting perspective. Since the carrier provides a transportation service that must eventually be paid for, the business partner requires the corresponding FI supplier data. Go to the company code section, enter the company code provided in the exercise. Then go to Account Management tab. In the Reconciliation Account field, select the GL account provided by the Finances team. The Reconciliation account links the supplier sublayer with the corresponding GL account in the financial accounting. This is relevant for financial settlement and payment. Now, assign the supplier's purchasing role. In the TM process, this is relevant because transportation service provided by the carrier can be procured and the corresponding purchasing data must be available. Go to Purchasing section and maintain the following data. Select the purchasing organization 0001 as provided in the exercise data. In the Purchasing Data tab, maintain the required order and currency and payment terms. In the Control Data section, select GR-based invoice verification. This settings indicates that the supplier invoice should be verified with reference of the corresponding goods received. Select the purchasing group, which in this case is 001. And finally, maintain the planned delivery time as 2 days. This represents the expected lead time between ordering the service and receiving it from the supplier. You can now validate the roles assigned to Pacific Car 01. This same business partner should have 3 different roles, each serving a different purpose. Carrier using SAP TM Transportation Planning and Execution to represent the company responsible for transporting the freight. Supplier FI used in financial accounting to manage the carrier as a supplier for accounting invoice and payment related processes. Supply purchasing used in purchasing and procurement to maintain purchasing related information required when transportation services are procured from the carrier. Congratulations! You have successfully completed the second practice of this course. Let's continue with the next master data object in SAP TM. Transportation network defines the physical and logical structure in which transportation activities take place. It helps SAP TM understand where freight is coming from, where it's going, how locations are connected, and which transportation resources or routes can be used. The main master data elements that define the transportation network include location, transportation zones, transshipment location, transportation lane, transportation resources, schedules, and default routes. Let's briefly understand how these elements work together. Locations are the foundation of the transportation network. Freight is moved between locations, and every freight unit has at least a source location and a destination location. Location can represent physical places such as plants, shipping points, customers, vendors, ports, airports, or warehouses. They are the most granular element in the transportation network and are used as a basis for defining other objects such as transportation lanes. Transportation zones. Instead of maintaining transportation relationship for every individual location, SAP TM allows to group multiple locations into transportation zones. For example, several customer locations within the same region can belong to one transportation zone. Zones can be defined based on the direct location assignments, postcode range, or regions. This helps reduce the amount of master data that needs to be maintained. Transportation zones can then be used used when defining objects such as transportation lane. Transshipment locations. Sometimes freight cannot travel directly from the source to the destination. It might need to be unloaded from one vehicle and loaded onto another. This is where transshipment location becomes important. For example, a transportation process could follow truck, ocean vessel, truck, or truck, rail, truck. A transshipment location can also be used when freight needs to be consolidated and disconsolidated during transportation. The transportation lanes define the possible transportation connections within the network. A lane can connect one location to another location, one transportation zone to another zone, or a location to a transportation zone. A lane can also define the means of transport that can be used for that connection. For example, you could define a lane for a plant in Germany to the port of Hamburg using road transportation. An important point is that transportation lanes are directional. If you need transportation in both directions, separate lanes may be required. Transportation resources represents the actual resource used to move the freight. This includes resources such as trucks, trailers, ships, aircraft, containers. A resource is assigned to a means of transport and can contain detailed information such as capacity, availability, restriction, and other planning characteristics. This information can then considered during the transportation planning. A default route defines a predefined sequence of stops between a source and destination. For example, plan, port of origin, port of destination, and customer. SAP TM can use this information to propose a route during the transportation process. Finally, SAP TM can use schedules when transportations operates according to fixed departure and arrival times. SAP TM can use this information to support more structured and predictable transportation planning. Now, let's jump into the practice tree. The objective is to set up a basic transportation network in SAP TM by creating location, transportation zone, resources, and transportation lane. To create a location in SAP TM based on an existing business partner plan or shipping point from ERP, we can run this program from transaction SE38. This program is used to create location in SAP based on existing master data. So let's create a location for the carrier business partner that we created in the previous chapter. In the business partner section, we can search for our carrier using the search term we assigned when creating the master data. In this case, the system shows a message indicating that the location already exists because I previously ran the program. However, when a location is successfully created, the system displays a green success message. To validate the results, let's go to the transaction define locations. On this screen, we can search the locations based on the different master data objects such as business partners, shipping points, plans, loading and unloading points. Let's check the carrier location we just created. One of the most important pieces of the information we can find in the general data section is the geographical coordinates. But how did SAP TM determine this coordinate if, when we created the business partner, we only entered the address? Well, that is exactly how the system can determine them. Based on the address information we provide, can use the configure geocoding process to determine the geographical coordinates of the location. This information is extremely important because in later TM processes, these coordinates can be used to calculate distance and transportation duration between locations. At the end of this video, I leave you the link to the video when I explain in more detail how the geocoding process works in SAP TM and how it is configured. Now let's continue with the exercise. Next, we are going to create the location for our hub. Let's go back to the transaction define locations. In the location type field, we can see the different type of location that can be created, including plants, business partners, and other location type. In this case, we will select hub, enter the location name, and then create. Then add a description, and next go to the address tab and enter the address data provided in the exercise. When we save the location, the configure geocoding determination process can automatically determine its geographical coordinates. It is important to verify that this information is successfully created, as it will be required for transportation planning and distance calculations. Now, let's do the same process we did with Carrier Business Partner to create a customer location. We'll work with Customer Business Partner already created. And that's it. With this, we have completed the creation of our locations. Let's continue with the next step of the exercise. Now let's create a transportation zone. Go to Define Transportation Zone Fiori app. On the initial screen, select Create, and then enter a name and a description for the transportation zone. In the lower section of the screen, we need to define the location that will be part of this zone. Location can be assigned directly, or zone can be defined based on the postal codes and regions. In this case, we'll directly assign the customer location for Pacific Company in Hamburg. Next, we need the system to determine the geographical coordinates of the transportation zone based on location assigned to it. To do this, select the Calculate Coordinates icon. As you can see, the calculation was completed successfully. With this, our transportation zone is ready. Let's continue with the next exercise. Next exercise is to create the transportation resource. Let's go to Define Resources, Fiori app. Select Create Resource. Here we can start by entering the general data for the resource. First, enter the resource name. Next, select the resource class. In this case will be truck. Next, we need to assign the means of transport. It helps SAP TM identify the general transportation characteristic with the resource, such as transportation mode and other planning relevant attributes. For example, a truck resource is assigned to a road-related means of transport, while a vessel or an aircraft will be assigned to their corresponding transportation category. Let's quickly navigate to the Transportation Management Master Data Customizing. A means of transport provides the basic definition that allows SAP TM to distinguish between different transportation modes and characteristics. For example, you can define mode of transportation like road, rail, air, or ocean transportation. Resource class can be also assigned directly at this level, together with other planning relevant attributes. For example, we can maintain the average speed, which can be used by TM when determining transportation durations. We can also define whether the main of transport is relevant for multi-resources planning, allowing the SAPTN to consider scenarios where more than one transportation resource may be involved in the planning process. Now let's go back to the configuration of the resource. Now enter the time zone. This is important because the resource may operate in a specific geographical time zone, and SAP TM can use this information when working with transportation dates, time, and scheduling. The continuous dimension defines how the available space or capacity of the resource can be measured continuously. This can be relevant for resources where capacity is determined by values such as weight, volume, or length, rather than simply by the number of the individual units. Next, we can assign the factory calendar, which defines working days that can be considered for the resource. Now, let's maintain the capacity. The capacity represents the maximum amount of freight that the resource can carry on. Then select the corresponding unit measure. And with this basic information, we can create the transportation resource. However, additional information can also be maintained for different tabs available in the resource. This information can be used by other processes throughout the SAP TM transportation process. For example, the load plan process may require additional information about dimensions and capacity of the resource in the order to optimize how freight is loaded. I explained how to maintain this additional configuration and how the load planning process works in another video, which I will also link at the end of this basic course. Now let's take a look at the Transportation tab. This section contains additional transportation related information about the resource. Here you can maintain information related to the business partners responsible for operating the resource. This information is particularly important when the resource is operated by an external carrier or supplier because it helps TM identify who provides and operates the transportation capacity. Once completed the Transportation tab information, we can continue with the next exercise. Now that we have created our transportation resource, customer locations, and transportation zone, we can create our transportation lane. Let's go to Define Transportation Lane Fiori app. On the next screen, we need to define the source location and destination location for the transportation lane. For this example, we'll create a transportation lane starting from the shipping point of Pacific Company and ending at the transportation zone that groups our customer location in Hamburg. Once both location has been defined, select Create. On the next screen, we can see two main sections. In the upper section, we maintain the means of transport that we used for the transportation lane. In the lower section, we maintain the carriers that can be considered when the transportation lane is relevant during the freight planning process. Let's start by adding a means of transport. On the screen display on the right, we simply select the appropriate means of transport. In our case, will be truck. We can also maintain the validity dates, which define the period during which this means of transport is valid for the transportation lane. Next, under parameters, we can instruct the system to propose the distance and transportation duration between the source and destination location. This calculation is possible because the location involved in the transportation lane already have their geographical coordinates determined. However, the distance and duration can also be maintained manually when required by the business scenario. Select Add. The means of transport will now appear on the upper section of the transportation lane. Next, we need to assign the carrier for this means of transport. Let's search for the business partner we previously created as a carrier for Pacific Company and add it to the transportation lane. In the carrier data, we can maintain additional information that can support carrier selection during transportation planning. For example, we can maintain an estimate transportation cost per kilometers. This information can be useful when multiple carriers are assigned to the same transportation lane. As the SAP TM can use the available cost information for support the selection of the most appropriate carrier depending on the planning scenario, distance, or other relevant conditions. We can also define a selection priority, allowing us to indicate the preferred carrier when more than one carrier is available for the same transportation lane. For this exercise, let's maintain an estimate cost of $25 per kilometers and assign a selection priority of 1. Now save the transportation lane. And that's it. We have successfully created our transportation lane. The same steps can be repeated to create additional transportation lanes based on the transportation connection required in the network. Congratulations once again. You are now 50% through the course, which is an excellent milestone. With this, you have completed the practice 3 and also finished the second chapter of this basis course. Now, let's continue with the next chapter where we'll start exploring logistic integrations. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.